Hello, hello, I'm Kads, and welcome back to the free-to-play review. So today we're going to be talking about the latest iteration of the Hero's Path, or Path of Light, or whatever you want to call it, the Autumn Equinox Path. Although that kind of bugs me because I would call it the Autumnal Equinox, not the Autumn Equinox, but I digress. So this unique path is a combination of Dungeon Divers, which we hate to see, Summon Rush, which can be hit or miss. In this case, spoiler alert, it's definitely a miss, and also a Soul Rush. Now, I will say the only redeeming quality is that there's no keys to worry about, so there's no locked off paths that you have to go somewhere else to get a key to go somewhere else. There's none of that, but that really does not save how bad this path is. So we can kind of make our way down. It's pretty linear. So straight down the, center, or the sides, and then straight through the middle, and then it deviates again, and you end up at the bottom here, where you have a bunch of arguably juicy things. You have some legendary tomes up to 4, and then a couple of mythical tomes up to 2. Also, special note to the 6-star speed glyphs, which is pretty neat. A couple of the Eternal Essence, and this is a lot of oil, believe it or not, Superior. If you're not already farming high levels of the Sand Devil, 100 of the highest tier oil is a lot. So if you can get all the way down there, that'll be great. So as you can see, I think the focus for a lot of people would be here at the bottom. We'd probably want to get some legendary tomes and or mythical tomes, depending on if you happen to pull one, or if you happen to have pulled one. I've not even opened a Primal Shard, so I don't really care at all about mythical tomes. But normally, I'd be interested in getting some legendary tomes. However, when we talk about the amounts, and we might as well just jump in there, if you follow the left-hand path or the right-hand path, they're identical, they're mirrors of each other. Come all the way down through the center, and you go either way. You pick whichever one 7,000, whichever one 9,000, and all of these rows are equivalents, meaning that once you unlock something on either end, it'll unlock the entire row, so you don't have to worry about that. So come down to 7,000, come down to 9,000. You probably don't want the feast or whatever this is called. I don't think that's worth 30,000. But once you get all the way down to the tomes, if you were to just pick up one legendary tome, that is a single legendary tome, it would cost you a whopping 43,250 points. And as you might suspect, you add 10,000 to that. If you wanted to go all the way down, same path, and pick up a mythical tome, it'd be 53,250 points. Now again, trying to stay on the positive side, if you were already to commit to getting down here, then the gap between them is not as bad. So just adding 10,000 obviously for each subsequent legendary tome you wanted to get if you were to do so, and then you add 20,000 if you wanted to get the other mythical tome. And so if you work all the way down here, it's actually a lot cheaper than to pick up the rest. But obviously it's extremely expensive to get all the way down there, and that's what makes this not as worth it. So as usual, let's hop over to the spreadsheet and take a deeper look at what's going on here. Thankfully, the Dungeon Divers allocations have not changed, so they're still the same amount of coins for each of the stages as we've highlighted in the past. Same thing for the campaign, of course. Champion training is not in this current iteration, so the only thing to talk about is that once again, Dungeon Divers is the worst way to accumulate points or currency of any kind in any of the events or tournaments. And so, as you would suspect, getting one of the tomes, either mythical or legendary, is going to be a ridiculous amount of energy that most people are not going to have to use over the next 4 days. So you can kind of ignore that element, or maybe not ignore it, but don't think of that as the sole way to get all the nodes done, because the primary mechanic for doing that would be shards and soul stones. Over here on the right, we have highlighted both of those paths. Again, just going to the one of the tomes. If you want to get subsequent tomes, then you just add their respective amounts, 10,000 or 20,000. And so the way this breaks down in terms of shards, it is 2 times void, so that is going on this entire weekend. There is no champion chase. This is effectively a summon rush instead of the champion chase, and so this counts as whatever is going on or accompanying the 2x on voids. So if you wanted just one legendary tome, it would cost you 40 voids, and it is a summon rush, meaning it's a fixed amount of points per shard. I think it's 1,100 per void, and so it will take, I think, 39 point something, but 40 effectively, because you can't have partial shards. If you wanted one mythical tome, it would cost you 49 voids. So you're going to have to pull a decent amount of void shards in order to get either one of the tomes, and if you wanted subsequent tomes, it's going to cost you even more, roughly about 10 voids per extra legendary tome, or 20 voids for the extra mythical tome. And I think the main thing to point out here is that for a usual typical champion chase tournament, if you were to do the same thing, it would only cost you about maybe 20 to 30 void shards. I think 20 is a bit on the the optimistic side or the lucky side, 30 is a pretty good average for just getting to 3,000 points in a champ chase. So you'd be pulling 10 extra void shards, which may not seem like much, but for a lot of people, that might be a lot. I mean, we just had a guaranteed for a seer for 40 void shards. And so I think you're probably better off saving for something like that versus pulling 40 void shards just to get one tome. And like I said, for mythical, I suspect a lot of you are in the same boat where either you're just saving your primal shards for now, free to play, or you don't have a mythical champion. So the value of mythical tomes right now is very, very low. So pulling 50 just to get one, again, is just not really worth it. If we're taking a look at the Soulstone side of the house, it's not much better. So we're looking at 400 to 500 mortals, which I doubt anyone has unless you buy them. You're looking at almost 30 to 35 immortal soulstones, which again, most people probably don't have saved up, and then 6 to 8 eternal soulstones just to get one. This is, again, just to get one of the tomes. You'd have to pull more than this to get subsequent tomes. Pulling shards is kind of iffy. Pulling soulstones is probably not worth it unless you just feel like you want to use them and just get it where you get. And you can definitely do that. And then, of course, Dungeon Divers is not going to get you all the way there, but it can help you progress as far as getting some of the smaller nodes on the path. Now, I do think it is important to highlight a couple of things that are starting tomorrow. So they're not active today, but they will be for tomorrow. Is that there is a champion training event where I would expect, as usual, there would be a legendary tome at the end of that. I don't know if this is probably a 4-day or a 5-day, if I had to guess. So there should be a legendary tome at the end of that. Usually 12,000 for a 4-day or 14,750 for a 5-day. But there also could be the lower node if they're putting the primal shard back at the top. So we could see that as well. So if your focus was on champion training over the next few days, then you're just going to get some Dungeon Divers points effectively just by running campaign. And so you can get some points towards the Autumnal Equinox Path. The other thing to highlight, of course, is that there will be, I think, a 3x on regen gear from the Fire Knight starting tomorrow during this Turn Attack tournament. There is an Ice Golem Turn Attack tournament going on right now, but there's no boosted drop fever going on in the dungeons. So if you're working on regen gear, or you want to stock up on regen gear, then again, you can get some Dungeon Divers points from doing that part of the tournament. So recommendations, what do I say that you guys should do? I would say that if you're close to Mercy and you feel like you want to try for the 10x on Shuzen, she is a pretty interesting champion, I would say, to say the least. Definitely, I don't know if she's going to shake up the meta, but she is an interesting way to deal with the current meta with all the polymorph everywhere. And so there is a 10x on her, and a single 10x on a Void champion with the current champions in the pool is around a 16% chance to get the legendary. So decent odds, about 1 in 6 or so, that if you get a legendary, it would be Shuzen. So decent odds, depending on how you want to deal with it. If you're just feeling antsy and you really want to pull because it is 2 tomes Void, that's also an option. You can just pull your shards and just see what happens and focus more on whatever you get from the shards and less about the Hero's Path going on. And it's a 2x, so it's always a better time to get legendaries, a better time to get some epics. So you can just YOLO and see what happens and then just redeem whatever you happen to get along the way. But outside of those circumstances, if you're more in my camp where you're not really needing of epic champions that are Void, or you're just not really incentivized by pulling more shards than normal in order just to get the base amount of legendary tomes that you're used to getting, then you can probably join me and skip the 2x, because there's always going to be another 2x Voids. It's going to, I mean, in fairness, it is 6 weeks away at the very least. But if it's not a ton of value, then I find it hard to justify pulling shards when I could just save them for the next one where I will get the basic or better value. And I do want to take this moment to kind of highlight that this is typically how I approach most of all the shard events that happen in the game. You don't really see that thought process just because I usually film and record the ones where I do pull, but I guess it's implied that I don't pull for anything else that you guys don't see because I record them all. So for stuff like this where I just don't see the value overall, I just skip it. And so in this case, I do plan to skip this 2 times Void. There's going to be another one in the future that'll have a better value, and I'll do that one and I'll just have more shards. But for those who are always wondering, how do you have so many Void shards or how many of whatever shards, it's decisions like this where I just skip 2x's or I skip events and I just don't pull. And then in this case, I have all the Voids I've saved over the past 6 weeks because I haven't pulled a single one since the last 2x, means that I just banked all of those, and then we wait another 6 weeks for the next 2 times Void, and then I pull some subset of the Void shards, not all of them. And so you can see that decisions like this, small decisions, add up over time, and that's how I accumulate all of these shards. So aside from the shard pulling aspect of it, I'm obviously not pulling my Soulstones. I still think the best value for Soulstones comes out of the Soul Chase tournaments. And as you might suspect, I will be spending my time and energy in the champion training event, working towards hopefully another legendary tome. Now, a little bonus for those those of you who stayed here till the end, I did want to talk about the summon pool. It is the last day because I did have a change of heart in my strategy. As I did talk about previously, I was going to finish the champion training tournament, which I did. So I did get those 30 prism fragments here at the top, and I just placed 13th. So I didn't try that hard. I just kind of fell in line with everyone who just got above 12,000. Top guy did 32,000. Definitely was not going to fight him for the Uko fragments. And this is where I changed my mind. I was not planning to do this, but there's a couple of stars aligning that kind of made me go for it instead. So I did actually max out the Dragon Turn Attack tournament as well. Not as much as the whale from, I think, Eternal Titans in the clan. I think it's 85,000 points, which is ridiculous, but it was a 3 times on speed. So you can see here we got the 11,500. So 16th, not really trying to place, but just wanted to do enough to get a second set or a second try and the current summon pool. Now I did spend quite an amount of gems to pull this off. This was not daily or free energy by any means. I used a good chunk of gems. I want to say like 600-700, maybe 800 gems to get this, to pull this off. And so it definitely was not free, but it might have been worth it. And there's a couple of reasons why I did change my mind. One, there is a Valkyrie in the summon pool, and although it's only a 4% chance to get a legendary, and it's even smaller when you multiply by the amount of legendaries in the pool, it's still a chance to get Valkyrie, who's one of my most wanted champions in the game. So I thought it was kind of worth it for that. In addition, as I did already mention, it was 3x on speed, so there was a drop fever going on, which just means there's a good amount of value. Spending extra gems or spending extra energy in the Dragon Dungeon while there's 3x speed just means I get more speed gear, which could mean that I upgrade speed on Arbiter or my Lady Kami or other champions that are looking for speed gear. And then the cherry on top was that my silver count was pretty low. I think it was around 12 million a couple of days ago, but after running all of that dragon, you can see we're almost all the way up to 40 million. So I do expect there's probably going to be a fusion starting next week, maybe. We haven't heard anything just yet, but we all know that there's going to be 2 to 3 artifact enhancements, and we're going to need silver for that. So when you combine all those 3 facets together, I made the decision to go ahead and go a little bit harder, much harder on the Dragon Turn Attack tournament. And now for the moment of truth, was it worth all of that extra effort? I still think so, obviously for the reasons I described. It wasn't just getting the extra pull. There was a couple of other side benefits, but we'll see. Is it going to be a Valkyrie? 0.4% chance per summon that it will be her. The first Prism Shard is going to give in epic, as you'd expect, a Stag Knight. Okay, that's a dupe. But I think that's a Faction Guardian, which will kind of help clean it up, because I prefer, when it comes to Faction Guardians, that they are champions I actually use. That way I don't have just 2 vaulted epics or whatever is just sitting in the vault not doing anything. So this is useful at the very least. Stag Knight, of course, one of the best epics in the game as far as debuffing goes. So decreased defense, decreased attack. It is a 95% chance, so you do want to get Sniper Mastery to get that all the way up to 100. Cool passive here. Well, if any ally doesn't place any debuff, they get increased accuracy for the next turn, which is pretty sick. And then one of the most reliable decreased speeds on the A1 double hitter. 50-50 shot per hit, which means a total of a 75% chance to place decreased speed every time he A1s, assuming it's not weak affinity. One more shot at the Valkyrie. Is it a legendary at all? Probably not. No, it is Talia, who is probably one of the worst epics in the game. I think she hits relatively hard, but that's kind of it, and she doesn't really have much extra utility. And you kind of want more from champions that just hit hard, unless they are like a Candrafon or something. But even then, he has a lot in his kit. But you want something more for your champions than just they hit hard. Something that keeps them alive, or something that affects the enemies in some way that's a long-lasting effect. So as expected, we end on a disappointing note. I mean, obviously, it was a really, really small chance that we were to get Valkyrie. But again, she is on the wish list, and she's been on there for a long time, so I would still like to have her, and I felt that it was worth getting another shot at pulling her. So anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know down in the comment section below if you're participating in the Autumnal Equinox Path at all. And if you're pulling your voids for 2 times voids, then let me know who you got. As always, if you found this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. And if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.